I've been seeing a lot of Negan memes recently on my TikTok, and it got me thinking of my very first Fallout 4 playthrough and my first modded weapon, which was a barbed wire baseball bat that I obviously named Lucille. So I was wondering how hard it would be to go through the whole game only using the barbed wire bat. So sit back, relax, and watch as today I figure out, can you beat Fallout 4 as Negan? Rules for this run are that I can only use a barbed wire baseball bat. I know he uses other weapons in the show and comic, but it just feels wrong if I cheated on Lucille like that. Also, I can only wear road leathers and leather armor. With all that out of the way, let's jump into the run. When it comes to character creation, I decided to do a bit of a mix between show Negan and comic book Negan. So I have the graying slicked back hair and beard that Jeffrey D. Morgan sported when I still watched The Walking Dead, and the signature wide jaw and big build of Negan from the comics. Tutorial stuff happened, and I tried to make the Vault-Tec guy go away.
Go away.
But, of course, Todd can't have that in his game, so I was forced to continue with the run. For my special stats, I went 7 in strength, 10 in endurance, luck at 7, and everything else at 1. Pretty standard for my melee builds. I went a little heavier in endurance than I usually do, since my options for armor are severely limited. The tiny man on the TV told me that the Great War was happening, and I got lost on my way to the vault and died. Second time around, I decided to actually start the run. So I ran up the hill, stood on the big circle, and some guy named Adam sneezed. I got in the freezer to take a good nap, got woken up by some commotion, and decided to deal with it a little bit later because I needed just 5 more minutes in bed. Since it's been a second since my last Fallout 4 video, I was a little out of practice leaving the vault without killing any of the rad roaches. And in one of my most embarrassing moments, I almost died to them because one kept slipping through the door before it shut. So at least I know that the 10 points in endurance is already coming in handy. Once I got out of the vault, my first task was to find a baseball bat to create Lucille. Thankfully, I know that there's always one at the first house on the right when you enter Concord. So after finding it, I went to Red Rocket and added some barbed wire and was finally able to have some offensive capabilities. For the early game, this is a beast of a weapon. The Raiders weren't much of a problem. I grabbed the power armor just to jump off the roof and immediately got out of it. Dealing with the Deathclaw took a bit of finesse. My first attempt, I drew out the Deathclaw hoping that the Raiders and Preston would be able to handle at least half of its health, while I hid like a wuss in the hardware store. And I died. The issue with sticking to melee for this fight is that in order to get into range where I can hit the Deathclaw, I have to get into range where it can hit me as well. So it took a couple times of me dying before I got lucky. I took a bunch of chems and figured out a decent pattern for blocking and moving away so I could actually get in hits before being torn apart. I also got lucky with a car explosion and a raider hopping into the power armor. That combination was just enough for me to be able to kill the Deathclaw, and for helping me out, I made sure to wipe out the rest of the raiders that were left. After that, I did some trading with Trash Can Carla, and we were attacked by a pack of feral ghouls. Then I decided to help out Wolfgang take care of Trudy. And since I was feeling like it, I killed Wolfgang shortly after.
You crossed the wrong man.
Negan is a pretty unpredictable character, so sometimes I would do things like this just for the fun of it, which I think falls into his character pretty well. I decided to help out Diamond City Security fight off the super mutants at the entrance solely for the experience. Once in Diamond City, I talked to Ellie and popped Kyle's head like a grape. After that, I got a little sidetracked and decided I wanted to make water purifiers so I could have consistent and good healing items. During my sidetracking, I was jumped by a pack of feral ghouls again, and killed the raiders at the USS Riptide. Eventually, I made a couple purifiers and waited a couple days so I could actually benefit from them. After amassing a couple bottles of purified water, I went to free a robot from a mobster. The Triggermen weren't too much of an issue. Lucille still is a powerhouse, so it doesn't take too many swings to pop some skulls. The Tommy guns that some of the Triggermen had proved to be a little bit of an issue. But in the end, I was able to close the distance in time to get off some good swings. At the end of the vault, I killed Skinny Malone and Darla. Turns out a bat wrapped in barbed wire is better than a bat that's not wrapped in barbed wire. After that, I was off to Jamaica Plain because there is a unique baseball bat in the basement of the town hall. Unfortunately for me, the entire area was swarming with feral ghouls. And when I say swarming, I mean swarming. Even though Negan uses a barbed wire bat to kill zombies in The Walking Dead, in Fallout 4, it is an awful weapon for zombie extermination. Feral ghouls are quick little buggers that zoom in to close the distance and fling themselves on the ground. The slow swing speed of the bat means that quite frequently I would miss my attacks because the ghoul would hit the ground before the animation finished. So I relived my old Call of Duty Zombies days by making a zombie train while I tried to take them down one at a time. Eventually, after clearing out the entire town, I attempted to enter the basement of the town hall, and realized I couldn't get in because I didn't have a high enough lockpick skill. And for those of you that have been here and are screaming at your computer right now saying that the keys are on a dead body around town, don't worry, I will eventually find it. Eventually. But before I could figure that out, I decided to keep on doing the main quest. So I was back off to Diamond City to meet with Nick. We went off to Kellogg's house to pick up the cigar, and was off to follow Dogmeat to find Kellogg. We were attacked by the Yao Guai and the pack of dogs at the same time, which proved to be a fairly difficult fight. But apparently not too difficult because I made the bear's head explode. Also on my way, I ran into a little bit of a dilemma. There are two identical men, both claiming that the other is a simp. And since I couldn't decide on who was right, I let the guy with the shotgun kill his captive. And then I killed him. That way, we sidestep all of the moral ambiguity by making sure that I made the objectively evil choice. The fight through Fort Hagen is where I found my arch enemy. No, not Kellogg. Turrets. They have a high rate of fire and hit like trucks, which isn't good for the glass cannon that is this build. The fight with Kellogg proved to be fairly easy. Lucille also hits like a truck, and the chems I took to improve my AP and health ensured that I didn't get instantly vaporized as soon as I started swinging for the fences. Next stop was Good Neighbor, where I made my presence known by introducing Finn to my girl Lucille. Then, because I literally cannot stay on track for longer than 10 minutes, I went back to Jamaica Plain so I can show you why I went through all that nonsense in the first place. The 2076 World Series baseball bat. It's just like a regular bat, but there is a small chance that it sends whoever it hits flying away. Also, it makes a cheering sound whenever that happens, which I like because I am a sucker for stuff like that. It's why I love the mysterious Magnum so much. So I took that back to Red Rocket and made Lucille Part 2 Electric Boogaloo. Then I remembered that there was a story that I needed to continue with, so I met Nick in the memory den, did the brain section, and was off to the glowing sea to find Virgil. Which I think is supposed to be a Dante's Inferno reference, because in both Fallout 4 and Dante's Inferno, Virgil is in hell. Anywho, I made it to the Children of Adam's Circle of Hell, and decided to absolutely ruin their day. Talked to the Green Giant, and was off to find myself a courser. The gunners hit hard, but thankfully a decent amount of them carry stim packs, so I was never hurting for healing supplies. Now, does that mean that I didn't die? No, I did, but I have no idea what from. Like, at first, I thought it was the mine, but I was pretty far away from the blast zone when it went off, so I guess I just tripped over a corpse. And yes, I did die again immediately after reloading because I completely forgot about the gunner with the rocket launcher. I did get my revenge though when I loaded again. I was originally worried about the fight with a courser, but I picked up a perk that gave me a chance to disarm your target, and I got lucky that I disarmed the courser within the first couple swings. So, Naturally, fists aren't a great weapon when you're going up against Lucille. So I bonked the courser on the head and then went rooting around to find the chip. Then, since I was placed in a situation where I had hostages at my disposal, I had to recreate the best scene from The Walking Dead.
Get away from me.
But I'm not the type of guy to leave a job unfinished, so I decided to wipe out everyone in the room. K198 was pretty chill about the fact that the first thing I did when I released her was hit her with a bat.
Thank you. I don't know what to say.
But she got the memo real quick. And then I bashed in this guy's skull too. Next stop was to find the railroad. Now, after seeing what I just did at Green Tech, can anyone guess what I did as soon as I entered Railroad HQ? That's right, no survivors. For a secretive underground agency, they really do have awful security to their hideout. A bright red line leading right to their front door, and the secret password is their name? What did they expect? Then it was time to make the teleporter, and since I didn't have any allies other than myself, I chose the path of least resistance. I went to Preston and said that I would help out the Minutemen if they would help me build the teleporter. So I was sent to Ten Pines Bluff to get the Corvega quest. But instead of doing all of that, I killed the settler in his sleep and went back to Preston. Now, either he didn't realize what I meant when I told him that the settlers wouldn't be joining the Minutemen anytime soon, or he was that intimidated that he let Sturgis build the teleporter to get rid of me. Either works. So I made it into the Institute to meet Father-Son. Now is a good time to mention that I will be siding with the Institute this run. Now my reasoning behind this is that Negan works with the Whisperers, and with Synths hiding among people, they're my closest approximation for being character accurate. For now. My first mission with the Institute is to reclaim a runaway synth. My first attempt of this, I didn't hear the whistle from the whistle football until it bonked me in the noggin. Second attempt, I made it up to the top of the pirate ship and reclaimed the synth. Now despite wiping out the entirety of the railroad, enough heavies stuck around to be a problem at Bunker Hill. The Brotherhood of Steel showing up was just the icing on the cake. At this point in the playthrough, the game expects you to have better armor and better weapons. So instead of being the glass cannon I was in the beginning of the game, I am now just glass. I barely do any damage to the heavily armored enemies, and being flicked by them is enough to completely shatter my bones. Anywho, I found and disabled the synths that were hiding in the basement. Then, I found out my son was going to die conveniently at the end of the main story, and I was going to replace him. Neat. So, as my first act as the next director of the Institute, I went to Mass Fusion to go get the beryllium agitator. So we landed on the roof, I sent a Brotherhood Knight flying off the roof, and went down the elevator. Since I have zero range capabilities, I was completely useless on the elevator ride down. Now, since I placed the rule that I couldn't wear anything more than leather armor, I wasn't really looking forward to going into the chamber. I made it out with just a sliver of health left and had to deal with the sentry bot and the two assaultrons. I will say that if it wasn't for Jet, I would not have been able to get through this part. I have never gotten the timing right when it comes to them charging up their laser heads. Jet mixed with whatever else I had left in my inventory were the only reasons I was able to do this at all. Now I'm just going to skip to the end of the story because I didn't have to use Lucille at all, so it plays out just like any other playthrough. Just know that I took nearly every opportunity to use the sarcasm dialogue. So, all that was left was blowing up Liberty Prime at the airport. My first attempt, I forgot where the third generator is and died in the process of trying to find it. Second time, I was a little smarter about it and just rushed in and blew up all 3 of the generators. Then me and the synth boys defended the hacker. I did miss a little bit of the fight, however, because I sent a knight flying away in VATS, so it teleported me way the hell out there. And unfortunately, before I could have my legendary fight with Maxon, I was teleported to safety. Talked to Sean, finishing the game to prove yes, you can beat Fallout 4 as Negan. I'm sure you see that in the title that this is part 1. I plan on coming back to take on Nuka World. While the Institute is a decent approximation of the Whisperers, Negan is the leader of a gang. So really, it fits the character a lot better if I went to Nuka World and became the leader of a raider gang. So no worries, this isn't the last you'll see of Negan and Lucille in Fallout 4. Thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe if you feel so inclined, and let me know of any challenge runs you'd like to see in the future. This has been Red Handed Gaming. Stay cool, YouTube.